On today's show, will this be the first year that Ivica Zubac is an all-star? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. Your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in the greatest city in the world, Los Angeles, California. Been covering the team, your LA Clippers, for 5 years on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. On the road to 8,000 subscribers before the season. And of course, you can listen wherever you get your podcast. This episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is the best place to get great deals last minute on tickets. Just download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we got a good topic for you. It's, will Ivica Zubac be an all-star this year? I'm going to be explaining my take, my fears of Ivica Zubac's role this season, and what our emphasis with him should be. Now, let's just start right now. Before we got Bradley Beal, I thought Ivica Zubac would be an all-star this year, truly. But I no longer think he's going to be, because we have added so many other players that can have the ball and demand the ball to some degree. Bradley Beal, Chris Paul, and then, of course, having a backup for Zoo, which I'm happy about in Brook Lopez. But I just think it's going to be harder for Zoo to garner the recognition from a statistical perspective to get him to the All-Star game. And it would be so great for him to be an All-Star because we are hosting the All-Star game. Not Los Angeles, we, the LA Clippers, the Intuit Dome. You better believe I'm going to be there, and I hope you guys from other cities are traveling to LA for that event because it's going to be so special to be able to host our very own All-Star game. And I would love if Ivica Zubac is involved. I don't think there are many centers in the NBA that are better than Zoo. I think last year you have Jokic, Wemby before he got hurt, I would say probably better, just given, he's this franchise player. And then in previous years, like as of 2023 and probably 2024, I'd say Bam Adebayo was better. His ability to guard 1 through 5, his ball handling, his passing. But last year I was very disappointed in what I saw from Bam. Even though he's a great defender, I think his offense, like Zoo has a more reliable dump it down. If I need a bucket, I'd rather go to Zoo than Bam. His mid-range is solid, but not great. He's never really shown an increased scoring hunger. I think in 2023 in the finals, he was pretty damn good, though. But I feel like he's regressed as a scorer since then, or maybe just regressed aggression-wise, which translates into his stats. Ivica Zubac was better than Bam last year, and he cooked Bam when we played Miami. So I think Zoo, and I'd even take Zoo over Jared Allen, too, just because of his more reliable post-game. Karl-Anthony Towns was better last year. That's the name I was looking for. So Karl-Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, and Jokic. I mean, of course, Embiid last year wasn't the case, but he'll be coming back this year. I'd assume he's going to be better. But I would say Ivica Zubac, as of last year, is the 4th best center in the league, maybe 5th behind Bam Adebayo. But I'm taking him over, Porzingis, Jakob Poeltl, Gobert. I'm definitely taking him over Gobert. Chet, I would take Zoo over Chet too, and Hartenstein, even though I love Hartenstein. Chet's awesome, by the way, but I would take Zoo. Like anyone else, you name it. Vucevic, Miles Turner. The Warriors have nobody. I'll take him over Ayton now. I think Zoo is a top 5 center in the NBA pretty easily now. That's my opinion. Gafford. Are we counting Anthony Davis? Anthony Davis doesn't even like being embraced. He doesn't even embrace being a center. I think Şengün has an argument. I will say that. But defensively, I'm not saying Şengün's bad, but I'm going to take Zoo. But Şengün is pretty damn good. So worst case scenario, he's 5th or 6th at the lowest, right? Alperen Şengün was an all-star last year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that. I'm almost positive Şengün was an all-star last year. He was. So Şengün was an all-star. So we'll just say Şengün was better. Fine. Zoo's creeping in there. And will Şengün be an all-star again, given that the Rockets added KD? I don't know. But my point is, I just feel as though, last year Zubac averaged 17 and 13. Now, granted, and 3 assists to go along with that. And he shot 63% from the field. The thing is he going to average 17 and 13 again? In the second half of the season, he was a lot better in terms of, well, not even necessarily a lot better, but we were throwing the ball to him more. We started figuring out like, oh, we should have probably been doing this years ago, where we dump it down to Zoomer on the block. And then he started garnering double teams. He got that triple-double late in the season, and you saw his maturation finally coming as a passer. I really hope that we lean into that this season, but I'm just afraid that with the addition of Bradley Beal, with Chris Paul, with Brook Lopez, and Brook Lopez isn't necessarily a mouth to feed, but Bradley Beal is. He's like an 18-point scorer on a third and that's he could average more, but he's an 18-point scorer as a third option. Will he average more than Zoo? I would assume so. See, that's the thing. We don't really know how we're going to balance all this scoring, with all these guys. It's definitely a good problem to have. But if I had to bet, unfortunately, I don't think Zoo's going to be an all-star just because of the amount of players we have. Now, I'm not ruling it out completely. I obviously, if there's one player that I would choose to send to the all-star game next year, well, for the good of the team, Kawhi has to be there. Because, if Kawhi is having an all-star season, that means we're having a good season. But besides Kawhi, like the person I want to make it the most, even counting Kawhi, is Zoo. I would love him to make the all-star team because he's so good. His rim protection has always been solid. I noticed that the second we got him in 2019, the difference between him and the older Marcin Gortat. Even prime Marcin Gortat, who had a better mid-range than Zoo and really good post-game, defensively, he was never quite at the level that Ivica Zubac has reached. Zubac is, for all the people that say, he's not very good laterally, he's pretty quick on his feet in terms of like second jump stuff. Whereas like he'll block a shot and then he'll rebound. I'm sorry, not block a shot. He'll contest a shot and force a miss and then rebound that very shot on the second jump. I think that's a very valuable skill when it comes to rim protection. And he understands angles pretty well. Like his timing on blocks is good. And it was interesting watching Mason Plumlee as a Clipper. He had like more bounce than Zoo, but his timing on blocks was like really bad. Like he didn't understand the angles. And I've never been like, look, I'm 5'8", so like I've never been a shot blocker in my life. You know what I'm saying? I'll block guys coming from behind and stuff, and pickup game. But I've never, I can't even relate. I can't put myself in the shoes of a 7-footer like that, or even a real rim protector. So it's not a skill that I'm familiar with. So Zubac, his timing, is the way he knows angles. I think that's what makes him a very good shot blocker. And then this past season, he was an all-defensive player. Not even that much because he got better at defense, which I think he did, just understanding coverages and being more experienced over time. But we got point-of-attack defenders that would not leave Zoo on an island so much. And everybody knows I'm one of the biggest Terrence Mann fans on planet Earth. But Terrence Mann was our best primary defender in 2024 and in 2023 in terms of the assignments that he was getting. And I thought Terrence Mann, screen navigation-wise, was just mediocre. I thought he was a pretty good defender against bigger guys because he's physical and he's got long arms and he is just like he's a solid man defender, Terrence Mann. No pun intended. But in terms of screen navigation, getting through screens, I feel like at times he would be completely out of the picture. Actually, no, he does not really have long arms. He has a 6'4". Oh, that's Trey Mann's wingspan. Come on, AI overview. Terrence Mann's wingspan is, let's see, 6'7", and he's like, listed at 6'5", so 6'6.5". So it's okay. He looks long in person. I'll just say that. And he had the ability to get blocks, steal sometimes in the passing lanes. But overall, my point is getting Chris Dunn, getting Derek, getting Nico. That really helped Ivica Zubac not have to sell out and guard the pick and roll ball handler as much, which would leave the roller open. Then all the time we'd have the untrained eye say, Zubac is getting cooked. His guy's always getting offensive rebounds. His guy's always getting a lob. Yeah, that's because when someone's going over a screen, you need help for a second from the guy who's guarding the roller. And of course, centers are the ones setting screens. So Zoo's going to have to help. Someone's got to help the helper. That's not Zoo's responsibility anymore. But Zoo is so good that he oftentimes can guard two players at once where we don't even need to bring somebody over from the weak side to help on the roller. He can guard two at once and play the angle well enough where he's taking away the lob pass and he's taking away the floater, or at least making the floater harder for the ball handler. But with the additions of Chris Dunn, Derek Jones, and Nico, you saw why we were such a good defensive team. It made Zoo look better defensively. In addition to his post game getting better, right-hand jump hook he's always had. Now in the last 2 years, you've added that left-handed jump hook. which has made all the difference because now he can turn over either shoulder. And when you can turn over either shoulder, you're unstoppable. That's just a fact. And so then you got to send doubles, and you know what happens then? The next step, getting better as a passer. And I think that was our biggest hesitation as to why we didn't feed Zoo the ball like that over the years when we were saying, we need more Zoo touches. We need more Zoo touches. Now we finally saw it. He averaged 17 and 13. I don't know if he'll average the same amount, but I will say this. He's only going to get better as a basketball player. Even if the stats don't back it up, he's only going to continue to get better, and that's really all that matters. But coming up, some of the fears I have with Ivica Zubac this season. I got to tell you a little something about Game Time. College football is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than the energy of tailgates and being in the stands with your fellow fans. For Angelinos, USC football fans, UCLA football fans, are you guys ready? I'm definitely ready. My dad went to USC during the Reggie Bush days, so I'm a USC football guy. And my school, UMass, was trash for football, but I'll tell you what, the tailgates were not. The only downside, trying to get tickets. Endless lines, hidden fees, and prices that jump at checkout. But that's why you got to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. Because you know how you'll think you got a ticket for a decent price, and then you're like, oh, with fees, and you get a $30 extra charge. That doesn't happen with Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONBA for $20 off. That's one N. Swipe, tap, ticket. Go download Game Time today. All right. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to be talking about my fears with Ivica Zubac this season. Okay. My biggest fear is something that I alluded to in the first segment. We just have so many guys now with Brad, with Chris. We still have Bogey. I'm afraid that we're just not going to throw him the ball again, and we're going to be talking about, why don't we feed Zoo anymore? Why don't we do that enough? I'm afraid, especially with Ty Lue's perimeter-centric kind of guard lens. You know, today's NBA is all about pick and rolls and not dumping it down to the post. And, I hate the narrative that the post up isn't efficient. That's true for guys that are not efficient at it. Ivica Zubac. The Nikola Jokic post up was one of the most efficient, if not the most efficient play in basketball a couple years ago, and it might have still been last season. I don't know what it is, but I know in 2023 it was the most efficient play in the league. So to say, and I think here's what has changed. I always like talking about the differences in eras. Back in the day, you probably, and when I say back in the day, I want to specify. Let's say my generation, 2000s, early 2010s. You can make the argument that guys got the ball in the post too much, and we didn't do enough pick and rolls, right? Because the emphasis was dumping the ball inside, not shooting threes. Now it's open threes, besides layups, are the best shots in the game. And usually a post-up is not an open layup. You're going to get a contested jump hook or something along those lines. So, yes, I believe that guys like, I don't know, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I don't want to disrespect any old player. That's the thing. Think of a random role-playing big man in the 2000s. Probably shouldn't have gotten the ball as much in the post. But maybe we should have ran more pick and rolls when it comes to, I'll give an example. I was going to use the Lakers as an example in the late 2000s, but Bynum and Gasol are so good in the post, it's kind of a stupid argument. I don't know. There's just teams, though, when you look in the past where you're like, oh, you could have run so many more. Oh, I'll give an example. Kendrick Perkins, right, on the Celtics. Kendrick Perkins was not a bad post player, but he wasn't great, for example. Now, I don't have the stats on hand, but maybe the Celtics should have run more pick and rolls with Perkins as the roller and Garnett space, maybe not at the 3, but like 18 feet away, which he had 20-foot jumper. Kevin Garnett was money. And then Ray and Paul Pierce spread out. Now, teams would go under the screen with Rondo, but then you would just reset the screen until it was at 18 feet or 15 feet, and he would just turn the Jets on. But like something like that, you probably should have gone to the pick and roll maybe a little bit more. The Lakers, I know for a fact, like, okay, I'll use another example. Lamar Odom, really solid post player. But there were times rewatching the 08 finals where I'm like, damn, the Lakers kind of have 5-out spacing. You got Lamar at the 5, Radmanovich at the 4, and then you have Kobe, Fish, and Powell. So why don't you use Powell in the pick and roll or even pick and pop? Lamar, Vladi, Kobe, and Fish, or whoever's the ball handler. Let's say Kobe's the ball handler. Fish, Vladi, Lamar with Gasol as your roller. More than what they did, which was the triangle offense, which was very post-centric. So stuff like that. But we've gone too far in the other direction, where we're now neglecting good post players who would produce efficient shots. And I always prefer inside-out basketball to outside-in because the rotations have to come from if you get the ball down in the block, the rotations from the top, you have to cover more distance, as opposed to when you're at the top, like Harden has the ball, and they're all loading up on the elbows. You know what I'm saying? Loading up on the gaps. The untrained eye thinks that's a zone. It's not a zone. A real zone cannot be played in the NBA. You have to sit in the key for 3 seconds. It's not possible. So, sorry, I get so worked up with that point because people like don't know the difference between loading up concepts and zone defense. There's a huge difference. Very few teams actually play zone in the NBA. And if you do, you have to hokey pokey with the 3-second violation anyway. So my point is the rotations come from further. Oh, sorry. The help has to cover more distance in the post. So you have a chance of getting a better shot, in my opinion. However, it's just harder to guard modern pick and rolls. And the reason that is because there's so many options, right? You have to go over screens against good shooters. If you go under the screen, you're essentially conceding an open 3 to James Harden, which good luck with that. Over the screen and in drop coverage, now James Harden's running in for a floater or a mid-range for other guys like Chris Paul, for example. Drop coverage, right elbow pull-up. We already know how that went. By the way, if DJ Dents, I don't think DJ Dents listens to this podcast, but if anybody knows DJ Dents, and I think he's gonna, we need that Chris Paul, Ric Flair woo after he scores every bucket again. We need to bring that back. Eric Smith would be like, Chris Paul for 2. Woo! We got to bring that back. But anyway, so that's what you do in drop coverage, right? And then if you want to take away the roller, now someone's open at the 3-point line, and the distance to cover now is greater than ever because everybody's spaced so far out. And then if you blitz, you get one pass over the top, wherever it may be, 4-on-3. And now the space is so much greater with the way that we space now that it's so hard to rotate. And then, of course, the other option, switch, which leads to a mismatch. And again, that's where I think the post-up is the most important. Against mismatches, because they concede so many mismatches in today's NBA to prevent what I just said, which is your defense being in rotation. So that's where you got to feed post-up guys more. And I'm afraid that with our options, we'll lean too much into Beal ISO at the top, Harden ISO at the top, Kawhi ISO, although Kawhi ISO is probably what we want. But Zoo needs to continue to be fed throughout the season from day one. And I'm afraid that because of our perimeter options and all these extra ball handlers that we're not going to do that, especially because of Ty Lue's tendency and the modern NBA tendency to not go to post guys as much. I guarantee the analytics probably back me up that a Zoo post-up is pretty efficient at this point. So that's my thing with that. The longer, and plus, besides the whole longer rotations thing, if teams are doubling in the post, you're literally getting the ball closer to the basket, which is a higher percentage basket and a greater chance of getting fouled. Whereas with the pick and roll, you have less contact. So the defense has a much greater chance of playing defense without fouling. And also, both options, you can funnel the ball where you want, depending on who you're leaving open. But I think that the rotation is just a little bit longer. And it's easy to spin out of the double team in the post. Easier, as opposed to if you're getting blitzed at the top or they're loading up on your spots. Unless you have a crazy pull-up on a dime, you're getting your shot taken away with the load up from the top. My other fear is that because we have Brook Lopez now, we're not going to play Zoo enough minutes. I love Brook Lopez, and I'm very ecstatic for him. But last season, Zoo played a career-high 33 minutes a game. I love that we have Brook Lopez now, but there's no reason why he should be going back to playing under 30. In 2024, this man played 26 minutes a game. And Daniel Tice was our backup center, or Plumlee. Like, that's absurd to me. He needs to be at minimum playing 30 minutes. And then we play Brook Lopez for like 17, 18 minutes. I think that's perfectly fine. And then small ball emergencies. That's my opinion. So those are my fears. But coming up, going to be talking about what the emphasis should be with Ivica Zubac and what kind of season I think he's going to have. All right. So talking about Ivica Zubac and the emphasis. I mean, I think it's a lot of the same stuff. Our rim protector, the guy that shuts down dudes at the rim, can play two and pick and roll at times, and intimidates guys, makes them second guess shots, changes shots, alters them with his, rim protection. I think that is where we need him to be on defense. And at times we saw a little bit more hedging from Zoo coming out to the level of the screen defensively. However, I think he's still going to be 99% drop coverage defender, which is fine as long as our point of attack guys do a good job. And I'm not nervous about Chris Dunn, Nico Batum, or Derek Jones Jr. at point of attack. It's mainly, the Bradley Beal starting concern that I talked about in the last episode. But as far as offense, throw it down to the post, be able to play make out of the post. Hopefully we don't neglect that. But another aspect of Zoo's game that I thought improved so much last season was his short roll passing. James Harden's the kind of guy where when he's like on fire or really hot, teams will double him on the pick and roll or blitz him on the pick and roll. And then you get Zoo in those 4-on-3 situations. I think his processing speed and just how comfortable he's gotten finding the open man and keeping his head up with that, one or two dribbles that he takes in that short roll has gotten so much better. And I love when you see Derek Jones Jr. coming from the baseline and you see Zoo throwing him lobs a la like Pau Gasol style, who's like one of the first I can think of, or Blake Griffin even. That was a privilege. Like in LA, we had Pau Gasol and Blake Griffin, two of the best short roll passers in the NBA at that time. And of course, because the spacing wasn't the same, you didn't have as many of those short roll situations, but they were so good. Like Pau to Bynum, Blake to DJ. I mean, it was poetry in motion. Of course, Blake to DJ was a much more exciting combo when it came to that high-low action. But Zoo's gotten so much better at that, and I would love to see, I didn't even mention this. How about a little Zoo to John Collins action? That's going to be fun. Zoo gets the ball on the short roll. Like, I dare teams to blitz us because Harden's so good at making that first pass out of the blitz. Because a lot of teams that blitz, they also like have their hands down a lot on defense. And like, if you have your hands down against Harden, he's going to lob it over the top. The great teams that blitz, the good defensive teams, like the Nuggets last year in the playoffs, they do a good job. Jokic, I will say, he does a pretty good job of using his hands with those blitzes. And that makes the pass tougher where Harden's going to have to think about it a bit, maybe go out wide instead, which makes the rotation a little bit easier. If you get the ball directly to the roller in the middle of the floor, that's dangerous for the defense. And then that's when you get John Collins coming from the baseline, or leave Zubac open for that push shot, that floater, which he's mastered at this point. I mean, that push shot is money now, like complete money. Sometimes I'd be at games last season, I'd be like, this is insane, like how accurate he is with this shot. Like it's become just a foregone conclusion that it's essentially going in. It's amazing to see, the improvement there from Zoo. So just really proud of Zoo and the player he's become. And I'm just hoping that, I would love for him to still be an all-star. I don't want to like put negative energy in the air, but I did say it's his impact won't be worse, at least not on defense. On offense, and by the way, I can already see people saying in the beginning of the season, if Beal's struggling defensively to start games, that, Zubac isn't looking good defensively and stuff like that. So, I don't buy that at all. I think Zoo will be fine. Well, actually, no, I don't buy that Zoo will be any worse defensively. I think maybe our supporting players will make Zoo look worse because our starting lineup is not going to be as defensive oriented without Chris Dunn, Derek Jones Jr. starting. But if you know what you're looking at, then I don't think there should be any difference. Zoo's going into his 10th season in the NBA. He's 28 years old. Like he's in the prime of his career. Like this is prime Zoo. And I'm really excited for the possibilities. I don't think he's going to get any worse. His post game might even get better. I mean, he's just gotten better every year. So it's important for us to continue to go to him and not neglect him just because we've added more pick and roll ball handlers. So that's something that's going to be on Ty Lue and the coaching staff, and I'm really hoping that we don't go away from him. There should be no reason why we do. I mean, of course, in games that guys are injured, he's going to get the ball, but I'm saying when everyone's healthy, we got to give it to him more. I think we still could have even gone to him more in the playoffs. Get Jokic in foul trouble. Why don't we make Jokic guard besides pick and roll defense? Why don't we make Jokic guard in the post where he cannot guard without fouling? Or he has to guard without fouling, essentially. Because in the pick and roll, in drop coverage, there's not a lot of contact. Even hedging screens, there's not a lot of contact. In the post, there's contact. That they don't call, by the way. That's another thing I can't stand. The whistle that Zoo gets, or lack of it. It's a joke. Because they want to make people play perimeter basketball because kids like it more. It's garbage. Total garbage. James Harden gets blown on at the perimeter and he gets a foul, but Zubac gets raked at the rim and they call him nothing. That's just league emphasis at that point. That's league emphasis. You're not tricking anybody, Adam Silver, and your rules committee. But anyway, that's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on Zoo and his impact this season. I was going to do a statistical projection, but I'll save that for another episode, to be honest with you. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more LA Clipper and LA sports content. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, subscribe and hit the notification bell to get us to 8,000 before the season. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.